Welcome, everyone, to the Country Club Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Leo McMahon. Today, we're privileged to have Andy Hydorn as our guest today. Welcome, Andy.
Thanks, Leo. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Andy, the way I like to work it is I like to hear the story of our guests, and we're in the golf industry. So tell me about the first time you picked up a golf club.
Huh. Well, the first time I wanted to pick up a golf club was I was, I want to say maybe 10 years old and was caddying for my dad, and I was a big baseball and hockey player. And I remember for caddying and watching my dad and his friends hit these golf balls that looked like they were going to go right up over the green monster at Fenway. And I'm like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So I kind of got an interest, started really playing. I played my first 9 holes at 12. Um, Loved it. And, I played in college at University of South Florida. Um, I've never put the golf clubs down ever. And my just passion for the game has never waned. It's gotten even more intense as the years have gone by.
Nice. So, did you ever play professionally?
Never played professionally. The world of amateur golf is a wonderful thing.
Okay. Okay. So what was your first job out of college?
So my first job out of college, I worked at a retail golf store in New Hampshire. Um, and I was there, I was working there actually during my college days as well. But after I graduated, I went up and worked there. And then about a year after that, in the end of 1989, I reached out to Callaway Golf, who was this small little company at the time, and convinced Bruce Parker, who was the head of sales at the time, and Mr. Callaway himself, that they should hire me as the first sales rep they ever had in New England. So in 1989, I got hired to go work at Callaway and spent 13 awesome years there.
Wow, interesting. Uh, so obviously you caught Callaway at the right time, I'm assuming.
Yeah, when I went to work there, they were a $10 million company. And when I left, it was 800 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So after Callaway, which had to be a great experience meeting all the golf pros in the New England area, where'd you go from there?
And I started my own business in the apparel and accessories. It was called Back Nine, and we ran that for 17 years.
And so how'd you get into the golf instruction part of the business?
Well, one of one of my Callaway workmates, um, who I worked with in the early years, had gone off on his own and started to develop kind of this learning process with some people over in the UK. And it was really kind of centered around the idea of process training, Leo. So process training being that, you teach somebody something, you train it, go through that process of, I'm trying to remember. It was teach, train. I forget what the acronym was, but basically it's teaching, having somebody understand what it is that you're doing, then making sure that they train it so they can then put it into play, in their own golf games. And I think the biggest learning there was that golf instruction in general was missing a lot of that equation, and a lot of what I saw was just a lot of demonstrating going on out there, where people were spewing out things that the golfer was doing that was incorrect, which is definitely part of the process. But at the end of the day, if you're not giving them the tools to train it, you don't really have any chance, in my opinion, to make lasting, effective change.
Right. So describe some of the training, get a little more detailed into the training methods that you would use or golf pros should use.
Well, to me, I, I love to participate in the social media forums um, about this stuff, just because, in my experience, in my opinion, really, um, the less a golfer knows, the better off they are. Well, how can somebody actually train without the knowledge? And I think very easily you can. It's through drilling. Um, and there are a million golf drills out there, as you know, that people can use. And if in my opinion, if an instructor has the understanding of what it is that they're trying to accomplish with their student, there are drills galore that you can use to help that student just focus on the drill and not have to worry about all the details and the numbers and the explanations and the biomechanics and any of that stuff. Because, in my opinion, again, and I'm going to use that a lot because it is my opinion, um, doing these drills allows a student to blissfully train, meaning that they're training and they're changing blissfully. They don't know what's going on. They don't need to know what's going on. And I've had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with a gentleman named Stephen Yellen, who is one of the greatest, minds in the mental side of golf. And he's the owner of the Fluid Motion Factor. And for him, he talks all about the subconscious and the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is the conscious brain. And making sure that most of what we do performance wise comes from the subconscious. Well, if you're constantly explaining in verbal detail things to a student, that stuff lives in the prefrontal cortex, in the conscious mind. So I know this is a long answer to your question, but at the end of the day, if somebody's doing these blissful training exercises, they're making changes without knowing or really needing to know what's going on.
So let's say I have trouble sliding my hip through the impact area rather than rotating it.
Yeah.
What would be a drill? What would be a drill that I could work on?
I mean, there's a bunch of things that, could come up that could help a student. And the other thing that I think is, it's a little bit of trial and error too, because some people grasp onto certain concepts and drills much easier than others. But I think there's things that I've seen coaches do with alignment sticks and belt loops. I've seen people, do some really kind of focused training on getting internal lead hip rotation as opposed to external rotation and sliding. So yeah, there's all sorts of different ways to skin that cat, and yours truly is actually training that right now.
So I agree with what you're saying. The less people think, the better off they are,
Yeah.
especially when swinging a golf club. Uh, so who's a proponent of these programs that you're talking about? The training and the processes and
I
the
mean,
subconscious.
there's a lot of really good coaches out there. I mean, Brian Jacobs up in Rochester, New York is a great coach. He comes from a different background, from a learning background, and he understands the way students really learn, and um, he approaches his coaching in that matter. So he's one that sticks out. And honestly, I mean, I look at people like James Hong up in New York, who does a lot of great work with young kids. I mean, he's constantly playing games and doing things with his students, that he's accomplishing change without them really knowing what's going on. I mean, Jeff Smith in Indiana is another one. So there's there's a lot, and I'm sure there's many, many more. But those are
Right.
just some that come off the top of my head.
So I'm at a loss for words here. So
Don't
are
be at
you
a loss
playing
for words.
are you playing tournament golf right now?
Yeah,
You are.
yeah, sure.
At an amateur level?
Yes. So I'm 58 years old. Um, and amateurs become seniors at the age of 55. So in the last 3 years, I've really just started being able to compete in some senior amateur stuff, which has been awesome. It's been great.
So what's the biggest title you've won as an amateur?
Well, last year I won the Houston City Amateur, um,
Nice.
senior, that is. Um, but 3 weeks before that, I had a 3-shot lead in the final round of the Texas State Senior, um, and ended up making a quadruple bogey with 8 holes to play, got into a playoff and lost.
So why do you think you made that quadruple bogey? What happened?
I think I just lost my mind for a short period of time, for about
Was it
15
on the
minutes.
was it
And
on the tee shot you lost your mind, or
it was a par three with water on the right, and you know, if I were thinking about it correctly at the time, and look, that tournament's a tournament that I want to win the most. So I was just cruising along to that point, but also recognizing what was going on, that I was about to win, the tournament that I wanted the most. And I just lost my focus for a quick second and hit my tee ball in the water, and then had some difficult issues from there. But you know, long story short, it was a great opportunity. It was a great experience. Um, and I almost pulled it off, but I was one shot away.
so it sounds like you weren't staying present. You got a little bit ahead of yourself.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say it was that as much as the guy who was in my group, Leo, was he was 3 shots back from me at that point. He was the only one really close to me. And it was on the 11th hole of the final round, 54-hole tournament. And he hit his tee shot first and he hit it in the bunker. And I was trying to figure out where his ball ended up, if it got over the bunker on the green or in the bunker. And I was so concerned with where his ball was that I literally got up and just didn't pay enough attention. Because
Interesting.
if I were in my right state of mind, it's a 170-yard par three with water on the right, bunker short and right. I'm saying to myself, hit it 20 feet left of the hole, take your par, move on to the next hole. Um,
Right.
but I just lost my mind there for a short period of time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how are you making your living nowadays?
I sell premium cocktail mixers for a company called Q Mixers. So I went to work for them this year, and this is the first time in my life I've been out of the golf business.
Do you sell the country clubs at all?
We sell the country clubs, we sell the big chain grocery, we sell the hotel chains, restaurant chains, all that stuff.
So I'm a recovering alcoholic, by the way.
Yeah. Well, we make
So
mocktails too, Leo.
so I have 36 years sobriety, and I'm
For you.
looking. The old days it was vodka and an orange juice and a Budweiser, maybe. Today they got all kinds of exotic cocktails that you can drink.
Oh, and we've kind of created that whole, kind of category of getting all the different ingredients in cocktail mixers. We don't have anything with alcohol in it. It's all mixer stuff, but yeah, it's a pretty interesting industry for sure.
And I'm retired now as a club manager, but I remember some of these places where they had their own special ice cubes and
Oh yeah. Oh
just to
yeah.
make the drink even better, you know?
So cocktails with spirits in them have overtaken beer even.
That's
Um,
unbelievable.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely been the cocktail renaissance the last 10 years.
So how was your experience in golf helped you out with this cocktail business?
I would say that at the end of the day, I'm sort of an analytical person, if you will. I like to break down things and compartmentalize them and look at the way I go about the things that I do um, in a more analytical way, and that certainly bodes to the way that I view golf instruction. Um, and I've become super cynical, to be honest with you, with golf instruction because of that. And the way that I think and the way I go about my business, whether it's selling cocktail mixers or in my time in the golf business, I don't think it matters. It's who I am and how I go about things. But it really opened up Pandora's box for me when it came to golf instruction. And I think in general, there's so much missing out there, Leo, in golf instruction and a lot of instructors, and this is where, excuse me, this is where I really feel like things go off the rails. Is there's a analytical component to golf instruction and there's a coaching component to it. And I think the good coach understands the difference and does both. Um, but at the end of the day, it really seems like the coaching part is way more important to the student than the analytical stuff. The analytical stuff's important to the coach, and so that they can go online and argue about, angle of attack and swing direction and all that stuff. But really the student just wants to get better. And I think a lot of coaches, a lot of people who are taking, money for golf instruction aren't really hitting that spot with their students. They're not really giving them the tools so that they can actually change and become better players.
Right, right.
I mean, really, what are you going to get out of the fact when you go see a teacher, you're a 12 handicap, and they point out all these things that you're doing wrong, and then they go ahead and show you what it would look like if it were correct? Well, that's just the beginning. That's like the beginning 5%. I mean, what do you do from there? And if you're a coach, golf coach, and you're not taking things from that point and giving your student the tools so that they can change, they're probably not going to change. They're probably not going to get better. They're going to be experimental in what they're doing on the golf course and on the range. They're going to be trying new things. But without doing blissful training and doing drills, they're not going to change.
Right. I'm just thinking I do yoga, Bikram yoga, and there's 26 postures, and you do the 26 postures over and over again every single day.
Yeah.
And the postures change very little from day to day, and that's
Yep.
not even there's no hitting a golf ball involved in that, it's
Yep.
just on a mat getting into a position.
Yeah.
So
So
it requires some. Go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I slipped into some bad habits with my golf swing this year and it got ugly. And I don't like to view it on video frequently, but it's good to do from time to time. And when I saw it, I was not happy. So as the last putt dropped in the hole in my last tournament of the year this year, I immediately went and got a hold of a local guy who's got a really good reputation as a teacher here in Houston, and set up my first set of lessons with him because I'm sick of it. I want to change. I want to get myself in better positions and have a more reliable golf swing and a more consistent golf swing. So I went to him, and what I got out of him was he's got a great eye for what it is you're doing wrong, how to do it right. He can put you in the positions, but he never gave me the tools to go do it. Now, I'm knowledgeable enough to know that I know what to do. So I'm doing this on my own. Um, and, I went to see him for my third lesson this past Saturday, and I had to tell him at the outset, I'm like, look, we're only going to work on my lower body. I said, if you see things in my arm structure or my upper body, keep them to yourself because we're not going there. And
Right.
and the point that I'm trying to say here is for me to change, I need to take those critical points of change in my lower body and just train those for 30 days. Just train those things for 30 days. And at the end of the 30 days, look and see where I'm at. If it looks good, then great. Then we can potentially look at some other parts of my golf swing. But I just and everybody's so focused on, I see, I say, right? I see you doing something with your hands and arms. I'm going to tell you about it and tell you how to fix it. Well, it's not appropriate in all cases. Like I need the time to change my lower body and my golf swing. And I know you know this, Leo, but the other part of this is the golf swing is a system, right? So as you change one thing at the bottom, it could potentially have a cascading effect throughout your whole motion. So, your upper body could change, your arm structure could change, all that stuff could change. So again, to me, I want to focus solely on the simplicity of working out a couple things with my lower body and reassess in 30 days and see where I have to go from there. And I'm a little frustrated that I have to be captain of that ship with my teacher who should be the one telling me to do that.
So did you make any progress with your lower body, what you were working on?
Yeah, I'm making a lot of progress, but it's I'm still in the middle of it. So I'm not going to judge myself. I won't video it. Um, Maybe I will in the next couple days, but generally speaking, I have a little net set up and a mat in my garage, and I work on it every night, and I spend 30 minutes in there literally just doing a couple of hyper focus drills with my lower body on the backswing and on the through swing. And I feel like I'm making progress, but I'm not going to judge myself until that 30 days is up.
Right. Yeah, I took a lesson at Golf Tech before I left the United States, and three things, jumped out, that I was a little off the charts on, but a lot of good things too, though. And it would have been nice if I had a couple simple drills to work on to correct those few flaws. But again, like you, I know enough about it where I can, okay, you told me what I'm doing wrong. I'll figure out a way to make it right.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what I've been doing when I practice here. I work on a couple of things, but I don't have the ability to monitor if I'm making any progress or not, other than the type of shot that I'm hitting. But I
Well,
hear
you
you.
should get Sports Box, Leo.
Now, what's Sports Box? Tell me about Sports
Sports
Box.
Box is a really cool product. It takes a 2D video from your smartphone and turns it into a biomechanical model that measures like a million things in your body. It measures, your turns, your tilts, your lifts, it measures your hands, your arms, your elbows, your knees, your hips, everything. It's pretty awesome. So it really quantifies what it is that you're looking to accomplish with your golf swing, because as we know, when you try to make change, it's a lot harder to make change and improve change visually by a video, because camera angles are different and things like that. Something like Sportsbox, which is like Gears, but it's markerless, right? And something like Sportsbox gives you the data. If let's say you're working on your hip turn in the backswing, if when you started it was 32 degrees, well, you easily know that you can measure it every time, and you can work your way up to 45 if that's what your goal is. But I think it brings up that whole point of where you're at and where a lot of students are at. How do I know what's going on? How do I know if I'm getting better, or if I'm making change? And that's one way certainly to do it and to monitor it and track the data.
So what does something like Sportsbox cost anyway?
Well, I think they have like a deal for like students. They have a coach's package where they load their students on. And it's pretty damn reasonable. It's like under $100 a month, I think. And
Okay.
for a student to work with the app on their own, I think it's less than $20 a month, maybe 10.
Yeah, because
So
for me, I do hit a lot of balls, so it'd be nice to get some feedback from Sportsbox. And then luckily for me, I can just go out and play and forget about all the stuff I worked on the driving range, and then just enjoy myself on the golf course.
yeah, 100%. It's worth a look.
Interesting. So being that you worked for Callaway, what's your opinion on the rolling back of the golf ball?
I'm so glad you asked. Because I do have an opinion here, and it's
Uh-oh.
probably a little different than most people. And I feel like anything, people are they don't like change. They look at things as, the sky's falling. To me, it's no big deal whatsoever. Like, and I said this to somebody earlier, did I love golf any less in 1983 than I love it today? I hit the ball. I was in 1983, I was 17 years old. I hit the ball like a great drive was maybe 270. I mean, Dan Pohl led the PGA Tour in driving distance in like 1979 at like 278 or something like that. So
Wow.
did I love golf any less then because the distances were shorter? No, no. Would I love it any less if it went back? No, because at the end of the day, it's all about how you compare. If you and I, Leo, are going out to play, you're impressed by the distance that you hit it compared to me. Like if you hit it 30 yards by me, that's the only thing that matters. Does it matter if you hit it 270 and I hit it 240? No,
That's a good point. Yeah, good
doesn't
point.
matter. It's the relativity of distance. When people used to be goo goo gaga, as you remember, about how far Jack Nicklaus hit a golf ball. And it it was the relativity of how he hit it compared to the others. It wasn't the numbers. I mean, the
Right.
numbers didn't matter. I mean, honestly, like I pretty much hit it about the same distance Jack did back in the 60s. Now it's
Right.
because, and I'm 58 years old. but it's because I have all this equipment. I have the big face driver. I have the
Right,
ball, you know, but that doesn't make it any more impressive. The numbers
right,
don't impressive. I mean, if you
right.
watch
You're right.
people,
No, it's a good point.
yeah, if you watch people on the long drive tours, they're not using USGA spec stuff. They're using, equipment that allows them to drive at 400 yards, right? So because that's exciting for them. But again, I just don't feel like it's that big a deal at all. The long players are still going to be the longest players. The short players are still going to be the shortest players. And it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. I think 6 months after this happens, Leo, and it's supposed to happen for the whole world in 2030. 6 months after that happens, no one will talk about it anymore.
And I know I come at it from a different perspective, and maybe people don't appreciate it the way I appreciate it. But being a general manager of a club, I've worked at clubs where we had to make major renovations because of how far the golf ball was going,
Exactly.
and it cost millions of dollars to make these renovations,
Exactly.
creating a driving range where you could hit it 350,
Yep.
uh, and then having to protect the sides of the driving range because the ball was flying out the sides of the driving range. Uh,
Exactly.
and people don't see that part of it.
It's a bigger playing field. Like a bigger playing field isn't just big front to back. It has to be bigger from side to side. So if
Right.
somebody's off, by a few degrees on a 250-yard drive, where it ends up versus the center line versus them being off that same amount on a 300-yard drive is exponential. I mean,
Yeah,
people
one
do that.
club I worked at, it was a dog leg left, and it was a dog leg around the marina, you know.
Yeah.
And when they first built these fences and the dog leg, the ball didn't go over the fence. Now the balls were crashing into the boats.
Yeah.
Uh, we had to make it. We had to make a change.
Yeah. And
But anyway,
I think too, the last point on that is I just think 525-yard par fours are stupid. I think there's no need for that. And they're at the current status quo, you know, that's not ever going to stop. I mean, the distance thing is just going to keep
yeah,
growing.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's got to come to an end sooner or later. There's no more real estate.
Yeah. So people love to bash the USGA. And I mean, I think they're doing this for the good of the game, not
Me
just
too.
not just for the golfers, but for the operators like yourself, for the designers, for the real estate people, for everybody. I
Yeah,
mean,
I agree with the change.
yeah, me
I
too.
remember, I think it was Brooks Koepka won a PGA championship a few years back, and they're interviewing Tiger Woods, who I think came in second, third, or fourth that year. And he said it's pretty tough to beat a guy who hits it 340 down the middle every time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And the one thing I don't know this for certain, but the one thing that I'm starting to understand is that the way the ball standards are structured now, it does give the guys with the faster swing speeds even more of an advantage. Um, so the delta between the short hitters and the long hitters, I think if they rolled it back would actually shrink a little bit. Not
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, that's another good point.
Yeah,
Good point.
yeah,
It makes it more competitive.
yep.
Yeah, good points. Good points. Uh, so where were you born anyway? What state were you raised in?
I was born in Schenectady, New York. Um, but I was really raised in the Boston area.
So you've moved around quite a bit though.
Yeah, we definitely moved around, mostly in the Northeast. And then I went to school at University of South Florida in Tampa. Um, and now I've been in Houston for the last 18 years.
So in your opinion, what's the best driver on the market right now?
I'm a Callaway loyalist, Leo.
Yeah, I have a Callaway also. Yeah.
So I use the new Paradigm and I love it. Um, and I spent such a great part of my life with Callaway Golf. And if you looked in my golf bag today, you'd see 14 Callaway clubs. You see a dozen Callaway golf balls in there. I'm a Callaway guy.
So you said you're playing the Paradigm. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
So if I'm playing the Maverick, how many yards am I losing right now?
No, I think all that's a bunch of bullshit
Really?
too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go by the marketing of these club companies,
Right.
we'd all be hitting it 400 yards because every year you get 4 or 5 more yards from
Right.
it
Right.
from a new driver design. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you hit your Maverick further than a Paradigm. You
So I
know,
don't have to drop another 500 in the near future, is what you're telling me.
hey, I'm not in marketing for Callaway, but I would I would tend to say that that's probably correct.
So while we're on the subject, I've always been under the belief technology for irons really hasn't changed much since ping irons back in the 70s or whatever it was. Do you agree?
Yeah, I've been thinking about that from time to time too, Leo. And the thing that's most interesting to me is at Callaway when we were blowing the lid off the iron market, we were doing it with all of these radical designs. I mean, the first Big Bertha iron was had this 360-degree undercut channel, thick top line, thick back. You know, it was really a stretch from what was considered standard in the iron market. And I've seen iron design kind of roll itself back towards a more traditional look. There's a lot of irons out there right now. They still sell a lot of smaller cavity back blades and muscle back blades, and um, there's nothing as crazy as like the Ping I2s and the Callaway Big Berthas and some of those other irons that came. Remember the Cleveland VAS, that crazy thing that Corey Pavin won the US Open with? Um, yeah, I think for a while, innovation in golf iron design had kind of mushroomed, but now it's kind of rolled itself back to a more traditional look. I'm sure there's technology things that make the new iron designs better. A lot of them are hollow on the inside and things like that. But I really feel like yeah, iron design is back to being a little more traditional.
Right. So this was great, Andy. I think I'm gonna look into buying a sports box, and
Well,
I'm
you
gonna
get
keep
it
my
you get it
map.
right you get it right on your phone, so it's an app. So all you got to do is
Really?
download the app and get a subscription.
All right, I'm gonna be doing that, and I'm gonna keep my Maverick driver. So thanks for that. Appreciate that. And it was great talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been fun. I love we have our own podcast that we record every week. Um, and I love talking about the game. Um, just my experience in the game. It's just been a blessing in my life to be able to have golf as kind of my hobby. It's been my work, and I really I really
What's
appreciate
the name of your podcast?
the game. It's called Quiet Please.
Okay.
Yeah,
So now that I got you on here, I'm going to ask you one more question.
sure.
The Ryder Cup. I know it's been a while, but it just never made sense to me that the Europeans played a lot before the Ryder Cup and the Americans didn't.
Yeah.
What was your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't really remember a time that happened before this year. I mean, this year was strange. There was 3 or 4 weeks off for the Americans, and I definitely think it had an effect this year.
Yeah, yeah,
But I don't recall that being a situation that existed before this year.
right, right. Well, thanks again, Andy. I enjoyed talking with you, and I'll be looking into your podcast as soon as I get off the call with you.
All right, Leo. Well, thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
And we'll do it again sometime.
I'd love it.
All right, bye bye, Andy.
See you.